All right. Well, we talked about this. It features an eclectic group of guests, and today's guest, I don't think, could be more appropriate to return to the show to help co-host for Valentine's Day, which I think is going to be our theme today. Welcome back, Teresa.
Hi, Clark.
And there are many listeners out there who only listen to We Talked About This when you are with me on the show.
Is that true?
It is.
Okay.
Well, there's a heightened interest when you're on the show.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. My wife, for example, she always likes the Teresa episodes.
Oh, that makes me very happy. Thank you.
She's always happy to hear when I've set up a future recording session and that she knows that you and I will be on an episode together, because she likes getting the female perspective. She likes the non-North American perspective that you bring, and you're younger than me, so you also bring a perspective from a different age group than me.
Thank you. Feeling all warm and fuzzy now.
It's not just because of that Chardonnay that you're tipping back.
No, it's not.
Is it a Chardonnay?
It's just sparkling wine.
Sparkling wine. And well, let's tell everybody where are you right now? Where are you broadcasting
I am
from?
still in Germany.
And you going to be specific about which part, or do you want to keep that a secret?
Still Hanover. I don't think it has changed since, or I do think I've mentioned that last time, and it hasn't changed since.
Well, sometimes
sometimes I'm at my grandparents', and then
Yes.
most of the times nowadays I'm in Hanover, and there is not much anywhere else to be.
Do you have a roving studio booth that you kind of pack up with you and you move to these different locations?
I
your equipment
used to for a while, and now I have quite the adult home here. That's
I mean like recording equipment with your sound insulation, and that you can pack up into a bag and move it all across wherever you are.
No, and you'll hear that when you play back the recording. It's probably going to sound a bit hollow, and no, I'm not quite as well equipped as you are.
Yeah. Well, people might think I have this, elaborate sound booth or something that I work within, but I don't. It's just I can move from the upstairs bedroom to the basement. I can go on the road if necessary, which I'd love for us to do next time we see each other in person, whenever that is. Let's do a on the road podcast.
Looking forward to that.
Well, what time is it now there? 5, 4?
Yeah, it's coming
3?
up to 5 now.
5 o'clock. Okay. And, with a podcast, people can tune in at various times, right? It's not live. So I read a tip that in radio, you're not supposed to talk about how early in the morning it is, because it might make people sleepy. But we don't have that problem here. Okay, well, today, because Valentine's Day is coming up, we are going to focus on a few things related to Valentine's type stuff. But before I do that, on the last episode I put out, I was talking to Justin and Salim, and we were talking about music and first CDs that we owned. So I wanted to ask you, what was the first CD you owned?
So that must have been in 1993 or 1994. It'd be really easy to look up the album when it came out, but it was a new Bee Gees album that came out. And for some reason, I liked the Bee Gees, 8 or 9-year-old me. And
Bee Gees, that's not what. There's nothing unusual about that.
Well, for a kid, maybe. And I think back and I pat myself on the shoulder for quality taste, because I think the Bee Gees, they are good quality music.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have a favorite song?
Not that I can remember. I'd have to listen back to it.
The big one's Staying Alive, I guess. That's the... Yeah,
I got to look up which album that was. That one certainly wasn't on there. It was a fresh off the press album that they had brought out then. And no, I wouldn't be able to remember. I'd have to listen to it, be like, oh yeah, I in particular liked that one.
And when you listened to it, where did you listen to it? Like in your bedroom or in the car?
Yeah, in the bedroom. So my brother and I, we both had our separate rooms, and we had a I guess like a boombox or like a stereo in our rooms, and CDs were really big that time, obviously. And I think what made me have CDs maybe a bit sooner than my friends at my same age were because I had an older brother. He's 4 years older than I am. And so when he was a teenager, he was really into music. And then I kind of started it a little bit earlier. I'm still not sure why it was the Bee Gees for me, though.
Mm. Well, here's a question. Being that you're in Germany, from Germany, how much German music would have entered your CD collection as you started to get more into listening to music? Did you have like German singers or artists that you followed?
Only later on. I do remember that sort of, and so by that time I was in high school then, there was a big comeback of German 80s music, which was called Neue Deutsche Welle, sort of. It was German Schlager music that had some really, really great stuff. Even some of the things you might have heard over the years that made it across the pond. And so that must have been when I was 15, 16, and we were allowed to first go to discos and clubs. That was really popular with me and my brother and all of our friends and overall in Germany. I do remember that the, I don't know, every month there'd be like a hit CD that would be brought out. And then for a number of months or years, there was a lot of German stuff on that made a revival.
Did you call it Schlager?
Schlager,
music?
yeah.
What does that mean, Schlager?
I don't know what the definition is. It's a word for German pop music, I'd guess, but like older, so not too current. I don't know what the definition is.
So the one song that certainly made it into my world or my life was 99 Red Balloons.
Yeah, that is the epitome song of Neue Deutsche Welle, I think. And now obviously had the German version of that with a German text. And you're quite right. So a lot of the stuff that then came back was maybe stuff that was produced right around when Germany was reunited, which 99 Red Balloons, that was the time before the reunification.
Right. 1983 was when that song was released.
Yeah.
And
the
wall came down in 89.
Yeah.
So I guess the song might have been around, but did it sort of make a resurgence in 89?
Yeah. So that is a song obviously to do with the separation of Germany and the how do you say, the frictions between it and how difficult that was. And then it's something that certainly defines that time. And then it made a comeback later on in the early 2000s, I'd say.
Here's a question. I'm looking at the lyrics, the German lyrics right now. And I can't remember now. When we used to hear this song, either parts of it, they did leave it in German, or sometimes we actually did hear... No, we didn't hear the full version in German, but I think they still kept in the 99 part, Luftballons. That I do remember hearing those words. So I don't know if it's because they left that piece in for the English version, but that doesn't translate to red balloons, or does it?
99
Luftballons is not...
That's 99 red balloons. But I'm not sure if the German is 99. Maybe, you know what? The German one is 99 Luftballons. It's not red balloons, but simply balloons.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that is so you can stick to the rhythm, right? Yeah.
Uh-huh. So that solves the mystery.
Yeah, you only have balloons, and we have Luftballons, and to make up for the missing Luft, you have to put another word in, so it's red balloons.
Huh. But is the song 99 Red Balloons?
Yeah. No,
but
sorry,
what's
no,
the direct...
The song is 99 Luftballons. So 99 balloons.
Which just means 99 balloons. Yes. So I don't understand where the red comes. I mean, I get your explanation of the ability to make it have the rhythm or not have the. You put wrote is red, right?
I'm not sure if the text contains any color. Cannot see. You're sharing the screen with me. I'm looking at the lyrics right now. I don't know that. I'm sorry. Somebody slightly older than me would certainly know.
You had no idea, nor did I, that we were going to go this far down into the red balloon rabbit trail. But I was just curious because it's been something I've wondered about for a long time that could be cured by just looking it up on Wikipedia, I suppose. But Teresa, today, or well, rather tomorrow, and closer for you than me because you're a few hours ahead, is Valentine's Day, which Valentine's Day can evoke different emotions in different people. Some people say, I hate Valentine's Day. I want nothing to do with Valentine's Day. We call it a Hallmark holiday. You've maybe heard that expression, just purely for the gift card industry to make money off the holiday. Others maybe have different feelings about it, but we pulled a couple of topics related to this theme. And the first one was, what does one give up in a relationship for a relationship? So, for example, if somebody owned a cat and their partner had an allergy to cats, would it be reasonable for the person who's a cat owner to give up that cat? And there's probably a number of things. Vegan, one partner is a vegan and the other eats meat. Or maybe midway through the relationship even, it's something that someone wants to change, and how does it affect things? So I'll just open that right up. What's your feelings about giving up things for a relationship? Let's just use that cat example. I think that's a good one. Would you give up Fluffy if you had a partner who had an allergy, and would you give up your pet, or what would you do?
For me, animals, that would be the absolute hard stop. That would be an absolute no. Even that you can.
Hard stop. No, what like that you?
I would not
whether you give it up or not.
An animal or a pet for a human being, unless my grandmother's life or my grandfather's life depended on it, but not for a new relationship. But I guess you have to decide between, there's could be two reasons. Either that person is severely allergic, there's a health risk with them having that animal around, or it's, I don't like cats, I find animals disgusting, I don't want to have them around me, I'm scared of them, I hate them. So there's different layers to that, but I cannot see myself parting from an animal that has been with me and loves me unconditionally, really, for another person. It would not work. I don't own.
So a health risk, though, like if someone has severe allergies.
No, I mean, what would you do with that animal? That animal has been, that's how I view animals, has been your family before that person entered. And you have to also think, so let's stick with health reasons. What is that animal thinking, right? What is your cat Fluffy thinking if you're giving Fluffy away into another family, another home? They know what's going on and they have to get readjusted. And I think nowadays we do know that animals get heartbroken as well. No, I
do they? Does a cat get heartbroken? Because they seem sort of like indifferent a lot of the time.
Oh, I'm sure we know so much about their emotional intelligence nowadays that we know that they get so close to their human beings and the people who feed them and look after them and provide for them that it's not like they don't care if you give them away.
I do often think about, and it's a little bit off topic, but we had to put our cat to ship it across overseas when we went to Japan. And when we came back, the cat was just picked up by a service that put it we had it in a carrier, into the back of a van it went and off to the airport. And I've often imagined what it would be like to just be picked up underneath and lifted into a crate, a door of a crate closing. Suddenly you're in the back of a van and you're on your way to some unknown destination. Sounds like a kidnapping. a really bad hostage type of scenario.
Yeah.
And I've thought, I wonder how often that cat wonders, is this the next time I'm going to be put into, like, you have no way of explaining it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
This cat does not know, like, you can't say to it, okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go with this nice man. He's going to drive you to the airport. You're going to sit in a plane, in the bowels of an airplane, while things are rumbling, and you'll have no idea what's going on, but it's all going to be okay.
Yeah, you don't know. And so that alone, that they have no idea and we cannot communicate that to them, has me worried for them so much that I would not give that cat away. And then again, like I said, health reasons, and that person might actually, I have a couple of friends who really, really like animals and want to pet them, want to be close to them, but they cannot because it makes them sick. But the way worse thing is, and again, nobody can I guess help it, and some people just don't like animals, is if I meet somebody and they are not an animal friend, I already know that number one isn't for me. And I could not, if I own an animal, it's got to live with me, and I wanted to sleep in my bed or be next to me on the couch, and somebody who says, yeah, no animals on the couch, and they kick it off, I cannot do that. I wouldn't change that much for a relationship.
And I think this is something that you can find out fairly early on that is an issue. Like, the first time you invite somebody over to your place, it's probably going to be early in the relationship, and that you're going to get a sense, oh, this is an issue, right? Whereas other things might come up later that you never knew about. But an animal might be one, oh, you have a cat. That's where you're going to probably hear that within the first week or two of a relationship, right?
Well, I had, as dating for the past year, tried dating somebody, and I thought that we both like dogs the very same way, infatuated with them. In fact, for the past couple of years of me knowing this person, we have shared so many dog pictures, dog gifs, and whatnot. It's probably, it made a large chunk of our WhatsApp communication. And now that we spend so much more time together trying to be a couple, I would have a dog's friend over because they needed somebody to babysit. And I found out that person actually, he thinks he likes dogs, but he didn't want to touch them or be near them or feed them or walk them. It was just, I like to look at them in pictures, and I think they look really cute, but not looking after them, really loving them, cuddling them, and being close to them. And that spoiled it a lot for me.
And probably something you wouldn't have really known unless you were in a relationship with them.
Yeah, in a relationship and have a dog staying over for the weekend.
I think my views on this are a bit different than they may have been like 10 years ago. Like before I got married, definitely if I was told like this cat, no, this is going to be an issue for us. We can't continue to be together. And we're focusing on cats because I think it's a simple example. I think I would have less understanding of it, but now I think I might have more understanding of giving up certain things for relationships. I think the dog example, for instance, for me personally, now I'm not as probably into dogs as you are. Like my wife has mentioned wanting to have a dog, and I don't want to have a dog because I think about what that's going to mean. It's going to mean vacations are now a different story. This dog has to, if we're going to go away somewhere, we might have to have the dog looked after by somebody professionally or a friend or family member. So I think of all the things that dogs do to sort of hinder normal living. But I didn't grow up with dogs, so I don't have any of that history. So it's maybe a bit different. Like if my wife had a dog and I said, well, no, I don't want this dog, that I could understand. That's not acceptable. I don't think that would be acceptable. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's when that animal is around is different than both deciding like, okay, or I think between a couple and one wanting to have an animal and the other not, then always the best decision is to know we're then not doing it, because then that's not going to be the best for the animal overall. But I also think that if you really have a dream and that's how you imagine your life, like let's just say I'd imagine my future life to be on a farm with lots of animals and farm work and horses around, I hope I'd stick to that and not be like, then sticking with a person in town in a flat for the sake of that person, because I think you'll dearly wake up from that one day when that relationship turns sour many years on perhaps, and you wake up and you think like, God, and here I am and I'm heartbroken and alone, and I've never fulfilled my dreams.
Well, I think that's too where the importance in the beginning of the relationship, setting up what you envisioned for your idea of your future, and your partner hearing those words and deciding if they're in or out for that. Like if I'm dating somebody and they say they have this image of always living in the country, and like you said, just what you described, and that didn't jive with my thinking, I would have to be upfront about that and say, that doesn't work for me.
But that also means you'll have to be very honest to yourself about your own dreams, because it's also easy what you say right now. But I think sometimes we then wear these typical rose-tinted glasses, and we maybe we quieten down the dreams that live inside of us. We even might forget about them, because you're making yourself believe that currently the high-rise flat in Toronto is what you really want, because you're so infatuated with that person. And you're constantly telling yourself that this is what you're really after.
Yeah, it's hard because as well, you're like, for me, I was in relationships. I had a few relationships before I got married, and there were definitely ones that I was willing them to work out, like trying to find, I was probably giving up certain things, like maybe what my expectations were of a relationship, in the sense that it should feel this way, look this way, be this way, because that's what I see in movies, or it's just a tough topic, actually. In a good way, like I don't have trouble talking about it, but I've been married now for 15 years, and in a way, a lot of the things that I gotta say, I was quite lucky that I was in a relationship with a friend who happened to be someone I worked with, and we were dating other people, and then we eventually ended up dating each other and getting married, which was amazing. But I did go through all those like relationships where I was like, okay, it's not really feeling 100%, but maybe that's just an unrealistic expectation. But with my wife, I always have felt pretty much I haven't had to do too much giving up of stuff.
Yeah, maybe that's what one should look for. Not having to bend yourself to somebody too much.
But there is that feeling too, though. Like, what if I don't? Then maybe I won't be in a relationship. Like, maybe I'll be single for the rest of my life.
But that is so much better than making only one person around you very happy. With friends, you can have, 4 or 5, 6 of them, and they can be your network as well.
Well, that sounds like a bit of a segue into the other conversation we were going to have, which was more on the friendship side. Can we expect the same type of support in a friendship as in a relationship? This was something you wanted to talk about. Yeah.
I've been thinking about that very often in my life. I'm somebody who's typically single, tried out a relationship for the past year, but have been single for a really long time before that. And now I'm feeling so much better that that is now behind me again because it didn't work out for so many reasons. And but now that I'm in my mid-30s, I have friends and family coming up to me saying like, but you should have somebody, don't you miss that? And you're going to be all alone. And that tend to be older friends and obviously my grandparents around me, whereas some friends my age and younger people are often like, no, I don't think that's necessarily needed anymore. There can be alternative ways of not just relationships, but also alternative ways of being. And if having your relationships in the broad sense and your network through friends and acquaintances and smaller and larger circles around you, that might give you the same thing or more than an actual relationship where you're just with one person. So what I'm saying is I don't think we need to strive for that single person to be with. And I'm really happy whoever finds their significant other to be with. But I don't think we have to. And we have to give up that idea that that is the thing we're living for and that's what we're destined to be with. Because if you keep telling people that, if they don't find that one love, that's going to make them really unhappy because they feel they're such a misfit, right?
Yeah, a lot in there. And so can you get from a friendship, obviously there's the physical aspects of a relationship, a romantic relationship. Putting that aside for a second, is it possible to get the same, what you need from a circle of friends or a friend versus a romantic partner? Do you think it's possible?
Well, if we cross out that I'm not going to sleep with all of my friends, and which some people do, right? There's polyamorous relationships that, yeah, I don't want to go there. That's a topic of its own. But apart from that, like somebody to lean on, somebody to make plans with, somebody to holiday with, somebody to trust, somebody to talk things through, to hang out, spend nights with, spend days with, share my hobbies with. You can have all of those catered for and be needed in the same way with friends, right? It doesn't mean that you need to be exclusively with one person. I might have one friend that I do dog walkies with, and the next one I like to enjoy swimming with, and the next one I like to do wine tastings with. And I think in relationships, people, it's such a sport for them to find that one person who ticks all of these things. And, but they're a vegan and I like my meat, so why can't they be the same as I am? And why can I not enjoy the very same thing? And yeah, you don't need to have that. You don't need to tie yourself to that one person and be out on that endeavor of finding that person that represents all of these traits necessarily, right? There's more than that out there.
Well, as you're talking, I want to sort of shift gears slightly. So 2 years ago now, you and I took a trip together.
Yeah.
You went from, well, you were already in Amsterdam, kind of, when I came to visit you. I was in Tokyo at the time and I came to visit you, and we had this great weekend together, seeing Amsterdam, which was a highlight of my life. Absolutely. That was one of my favorite trips we ever took. One might say that for a married man to go and have a trip with a single woman, I guess you were, that would be some relationships or some partners or some people might think that was something that maybe was inappropriate or couldn't happen. Yet we had that trip together, and my wife was fully knowledgeable that it was you I was going to see, and we had a fantastic time. But I suspect that's probably not normal in the sense that many couples would not have a relationship like that, where they would feel comfortable with their partner spending time with someone who is of the opposite sex. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be, if you went out now onto the street and asked 100 people, I think from 90 people, you'd hear that is an absolute no-go. It's just because why would you go out with a person take a trip, actually fly in over thousands of kilometers to hang out with a person of the other sex? And I get it, because it lends itself out to, oh, there must be something else going on, and that should not happen because you should be faithful. And it's a myriad of ideas that come to people's minds. But then why not, right? As long as that there's trust involved on your wives and your side. But once you can grow beyond that and the trust is there, then why not do that? Because it was a fantastic, fun weekend with other friends of mine, and you're otherwise missing out on that if you're just tying yourself to that one person, which you should. And if you're in a happy relationship, I'm so happy for people who have that. But all I'm saying is there is much more network and relationships out there that you can benefit from.
Yeah. Would your previous partner have been comfortable with you taking a trip to Amsterdam, and that person isn't coming? Do you think he would have been comfortable with that?
I don't think any of the people I have been with would have been comfortable with that. No. There would have been at least one or two arguments around that, stupid questions, and some weird time for 1 or 2 weeks afterwards. Yeah, it's not normal.
Yeah. So am I just really lucky then that I have someone who was okay with a trip like that?
I think so. I was saying to you earlier on, it might, no offense obviously, but I wonder if it's also a function of how long you have been with somebody and how solid the relationship is. So if you're, I don't know, in your mid-20s and you're still insecure about who you are and no kids, and you just have that new boyfriend, new girlfriend, maybe then, I don't know, you wonder if they might just move on to the next bigger thing. Whereas you've been with your wife for a long time, and you have a life created together that's so solid, and it's such a union that both of you can be very certain probably that none of the other is going to give it up all too easily. And
now, my wife also had met you before we went on that trip, right? Because you came to spend some time with us in Japan. I think that probably helps too.
Yeah,
you weren't this mysterious person.
Absolutely,
this mysterious female German friend of mine.
Yeah, that'd be really weird. Hey, it's just somebody I know. Absolutely right. So that all, but I think you are really lucky. But so you'd let your wife go off on a trip similar to that, hopefully, and think of how much joy people bring back if they can go out for a moment and, go after their hobbies and things that they like to do. And it just, I think overall it probably increases the quality of a relationship. No, I don't think that. I know that it increases the quality of a relationship if both can be really happy. Yeah.
It's funny as you say that, could I imagine my wife going to Amsterdam and spending a weekend with a guy? In full disclosure, we had separate rooms. You had your room, I had mine. Yeah. That was a distinct, that's something that definitely we should share. I guess the other part of it that is something we should probably mention is that you have kind of gone, I think at that time you were more dating women than men, right? So I think that's also something we
Correct.
should say probably does lend some support to, hanging out with you. I think when you were at our place, it's weird. You were queer then, like in that queer mode. I don't know how to describe it, but I think when we spent time with you in Tokyo, my wife saw you probably more as someone who dates women. Maybe.
And I still date women, and I still date men, and I'm still queer.
Yeah, and I hope that didn't mean that to sound offensive or anything. If that's how it came across, did it?
No.
Okay, but do you know what I mean? Because we've talked about this in this podcast, where you sometimes will think, "Do I want to be in a relationship with a man? I'm in one with a woman right now," or you're in one with a woman and you think, or with a man and you think maybe a woman. Like there is that aspect to it that perhaps also maybe is part of the comfort level. I don't know.
Well, I hope so. That said, though, somebody is being queer. It usually makes it a lot harder because I think to other people who are not queer, it makes it a little bit unforeseeable. And it's like, oh, so that's weird. And that means they are like a free for all, going for everything. And that's not the case, right? It's just because I happen to date more than one gender, it doesn't make me be open to just anyone. So, sorry, that took a tangent there.
No. And I feel like our topic today is serious. It's got a bit of a serious tone to it, and I'm putting you on the spot. Am I putting you on the spot, or are you okay?
It feels a little bit like that, yes.
That I'm putting you on the spot?
You too.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I have to I have my other podcast it's a shameless plug, my coaching podcast where I interview people. So maybe I've got my interview hat on more than I should right now, if that's what it is.
Okay.
Okay. Let's lighten it up just a little bit. If, could you date someone who didn't drink alcohol? Like they were just, I don't drink alcohol. Could you be in a relationship with someone like that? Not someone like that. I make them sound like they're weird, but if they don't drink alcohol, would you date them? Could you be in a relationship?
I ask myself that so often because I'm such a happy drinker, and I drink very regularly. I've done my dry January, which went fantastic, and I really enjoyed that. But I've got some friends who barely ever drink, and that's fine. Somehow, and that might be a stage 1 or 2 to being an alcoholic. I identify having fun and going out, being in a bar, to having a drink, and then I have a little bit less fun if I'm there with a person who doesn't drink and I'm just the only drinker. I still want to have my drink. I'm still going to get my drink, but I think there is something endearing about, let's order a cheeky bottle of champagne and, it's 11 o'clock, noon.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it makes me sound like a really shitty person. I'm having a hard time imagining that.
Yeah, because I know people who are in relationships where one partner doesn't drink, and that person is a wine lover. In one example, she loves going on wine tours, and her husband's quite happy to go on these tours. He likes going on these tours, but he doesn't drink. And I've often wondered, like, isn't that kind of weird in a sense? Like, how can he really enjoy that the same way? How can she enjoy it the same way when you aren't, like, if you're going to go to a wine tasting, for example, isn't part of the fun of that to say, what do you think of this wine? So
also having that tipple and a little bit silliness, and you and I, we've gone out and having that first drink of the day and on an empty stomach, and it kind of hits you, and you're having that giggle. It's just that feeling, and it's so refreshing, I find, and I like that. And And then when you really like somebody, you want to share it with somebody, your significant other. Yeah.
Like, if I think occasionally my wife and I will get dinner put together and we'll have a glass of wine and she'll say, do you want a glass of wine? Or I'll ask her if she wants a glass of wine, and it's always yes is the answer. And if I knew that she didn't drink and I was the only one, I would feel wouldn't feel as good about that. Like the same way about that, I guess. It's
in your face a little bit, like, because it's like having chocolate. It's like, having that other slice of cheese that you shouldn't have, because we all know that alcohol essentially isn't really good for you. It doesn't do you any harm if it's in limitation, but it's also not good for you. So it's a cheeky thing. And I think if you have people around you who constantly abstain from it, it's just so loud at you that you're the pig who gives in to these what's the biblical word of when you give into food, lots of food and alcohol, and anyways, that hedonism, let's call it that, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be left with that feeling.
Yeah. We're not going to do a rapid fire today, but I'm going to give you 2 rapid fires I just came up with. So all you have to do is just give a quick answer. Would you give up drinking for a partner?
No.
Would you give up smoking if you were a smoker for a partner?
No, I hate smoking. I'd never date a smoker, so they'd have to give up smoking for me.
So if they were a smoker, you'd have to give that up. They would have to give up smoking.
Yeah, never again dating a smoker.
Is that fair?
Yes. Yeah,
it's fair.
Yeah, it's my choice, right? I mean, they don't have to be with me then we have to split up.
Okay. So how is that different from a cat?
The cat is a living thing that has a soul and a brain and a heart and relies on somebody. The other thing is a cigarette that's going to kill you. And it's my choice. Like, they don't need, they don't have to do it if they don't want to be with me. I'm just saying, because it grosses me out, I would not date a smoker.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I did date one very, very briefly, and yeah.
Would you date a person who doesn't shower? It's the same question.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, shower's hygienic.
Yeah, but
smoking, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I hope we haven't. We had a word of the day on a previous podcast. It was whimsical.
I like that.
I like to include whimsy in these podcasts. Let's move on to your weird news story.
Right. So, some people might have heard about this one. People getting kicked off airplanes, people being escorted off airplanes with police or the airport security people is no news. And typically I scroll past these. Well,
especially too, we got the COVID stuff going on. That's sometimes there's been some COVID stories around this, but your story isn't a COVID
people
story.
People don't want to wear their masks, don't want to behave, or they're too drunk, or whatever it might be. There's a lot of these stories. Now, I clicked into this story because it says, exclusive, high-flying barrister 41 and his family are removed from a BA flight at Heathrow by armed police after furious row with cabin crew who refused to let his children's nanny join them in business class. And of course, you have your mind made up by the time you read the headline, but then I clicked into it anyways because
it's a good point, because you did share it with me, and my first thinking was, this sounds like some sort of privileged guy. Yeah.
He sounds like he was just asking for a business class on the whim because he's a high flying barrister and he's got a nanny and they got to all fly business class. And so I clicked into it, and the story is a little bit different. So in this case, this guy, they wanted to go on a skiing trip from London to northern Italy. And so they had actually bought business class seats for him and his wife, the kid, and the nanny, 4 seats. And sometimes when you walk up to the where you actually go through the gates to the plane, it changes your seat as you swipe your boarding card. And so that is apparently what has happened. And all of a sudden, the nanny and the kid found out they'd gotten bumped down to economy. So they go on a plane, and the guy goes up to the flight attendants. He's like, "So what's up? We booked 4 business class seats, but 2 of my the people who are traveling, my child and my nanny, are now bumped down. What's happened?" And so,
was it the child and the nanny, or just the nanny that got bumped down?
Not
I
sure.
think it was just the nanny.
Perhaps just the nanny.
I think it was, yeah.
So, apparently, British Airways says that was because the flight was oversold, so they had to bump down somebody. And I read that sometimes happens so that does happen, as unfortunate as it may sound, but it happens to people who have bought business class seats via points, because they are the least important, so to speak.
They have to be low on the, well, I was going to say, I was surprised when I heard that I've heard this whole overselling of flights thing, but I assume that took place mostly with, say, someone who had an economy ticket. But someone who bought a business class ticket, I would have assumed, would have some higher level of, like, to be kicked out.
Yeah.
Would be harder to be kicked out, which made me think maybe they bought it on a discount or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So that's exactly apparently what happened. But so this guy, and fair enough, right? You'd still try and seek some clarification. And from the story, it actually sounds like still there was 1 empty seat in business class. So he said, "So why can she not sit here with us? That's what we." And
right.
No, you're right. The kid was going to be with them, and they needed the nanny to be with them because his wife and him, they wanted to do some work before they went into that vacation. So it was crucial that the nanny was with the kid.
Yeah, right.
So, and it's very understandable, right, that they made it sound like he kicked a fuss, but throughout the interview, he sounds like he's being very reasonable. And he says, like, "Look, I paid for this. Like, had I known this was going to be happening, I would have not booked that flight. I would have even been happy taking a later flight and coming later to the airport if that meant we could have just sit together as we booked." So yeah, I think he had a very fair point. Do you have any feelings about that when you read through the article?
Yeah, well, like you said, when I saw the headline, my thinking was, yeah, here's some guy who's, just one of these privileged sort of guys that's kicking up a fuss and being unreasonable, and then I'm going to read this article and say, what an asshole. But when I read, I mean, the guy legitimately bought a business class ticket. I think he said it cost £8,000, the whole thing, to arrange it so that they would have the nanny to be able to fly business class with them, if I read that right. And that, you mentioned that it got picked up on the scan on the way in, which makes it sound like they were only informed about it as they were boarding the plane, which also I see that's a huge issue. If I had a trip planned and I paid the money, required to put my nanny in a business class seat, only to be told at not even check-in, maybe it was, we don't know all the details necessarily, but pretty soon to the time they were going to fly, he finds out, no, you're not. Your nanny isn't going to be in business class. She's been downgraded to economy. Sorry, this flight's taking off in 9 minutes, and that's just how it's going to be. I fully see the reasons why this guy was angry, and I think he should be angry.
Exactly. And what I do like about this incident is, so, it'll be in the news, and mostly, so in other incidences where people really has behaved badly and they got to be escorted off the plane, people and commentators and everybody on the internet will be, take that dick off the plane. He should never be allowed to fly again. In this case, people took sides with this very slick-looking lawyer or barrister. And everybody's on their side, obviously, and slamming BA for their poor behavior. So I like that story.
Yeah. And I guess we should also add that he did advise he had lodged a complaint with, I don't know if he did it while he was sitting there fuming, if he, sent something to customer support or whatever. I think he did. And apparently that's also the tone changed a lot at that point, if I read that right, that once they knew he had lodged a complaint, they gave him even less attention or treated him differently once he revealed that he had made a formal complaint.
Yeah, so it seems like they have now tried to apologize to him, but what he is keen on is having the, so to speak, replacement cost reimbursed. They had to check into a hotel, book another flight the next day, and
right, they gave him a voucher to say,
yeah,
this will replace it. And that, I agree, that's not always acceptable. I've been on flights where I've been told, yeah, you're not getting on this flight, so we're going to give you a voucher. Mm-hmm. For the trouble, and it's like a $200 credit to $200 credit for a future flight with Air Canada. And by the way, it expires in a year.
Yeah.
I didn't even use that. I remember I was like, I'm never going to use this thing because it just it means I have to have a scenario come up where I can use this $200 credit. What if I don't fly anywhere personally?
Yeah, I agree. You want to have the cash reimbursed, and I think that should be standard. Though that said, and taking a little tangent to just general how the travel industry now has changed, airlines have gotten. You'd think they're so hungry for business nowadays because they had such a crappy year, but it seems that in the opposite happens. They've become a lot stricter, trying to scrap every penny. I was trying to fly back from Greece in October last year, and I had luggage that was, I think, 1 or 2 kilograms overweight, and I had to pay dearly for that. Whereas prior to the pandemic, 1 or 2 kilograms, they'd be absolutely fine with that. But no, they're charging you for every penny now, and they're just trying to rake in the costs, I guess.
Yeah. So on one hand, you would almost expect them to be more accommodating because of how tough it's been for them to get business. So let's keep the customer happy. But actually, it's been more the opposite, that no, we got to, wherever there's a chance to charge more, we should charge more.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, I think I want to finish up just by quickly asking you, does Valentine's Day mean anything to you in terms of, is it just a Hallmark holiday, as we tend to call it over here in North America? Many people refer to it that way. Or is it meaningful to you?
No. Because
whether you're in a relationship or not in a relationship.
No, it's not. It's like I said, it's been. No, it's never meant anything to me. In
Germany, is it something? Is it because in North America it seems like more of a thing than it might be in other parts of the world.
I don't think it's much different than it is in North America. Same here. So tomorrow there's, roses and hearts and chocolates going to be out everywhere, and people finding they're obliged to make presents and buy flowers.
Yeah, and pay like double the price for flowers on Valentine's Day. Yeah. Oh, I knew a friend of mine. He had some connection to a flower shop, and I forget what the connection was exactly, but him and I worked together at a restaurant, and a couple times he said, "Hey, if you're free on Valentine's Day, do you want to help me deliver flowers for this flower shop?" And I was like, yeah, sure. Okay. And I think it paid like $7 a delivery or something like that. And I remember the experience of delivering flowers to different people. Sometimes it was, oh, wow, that's so beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Oh, Jim, you shouldn't have, who are partner or husband or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, they're really excited. And there were other times where I could tell it was like, maybe it was somebody just doing it to go through the motions. And I do remember one distinct flower delivery that I made was to a doctor, a female doctor. And I delivered the flowers, and she came out. She said, "Oh, thanks. You can just put those over there." And I don't think she told me, but I got the impression that being a attractive female doctor that probably this wasn't the only bouquet of flowers being sent her way that day.
Yeah. Yeah, and also receiving flowers is always nice. I love to receive flowers, but on Valentine's Day they come with an extra amount of cheesiness. And I think they make, just listening to that story, it makes me feel just uncomfortable because I feel ashamed for that lady that she just didn't reciprocate those feelings, and that's very uncomfortable for anyone.
Yeah, it's flowers are a funny thing because I have friends who will say they wouldn't spend money on flowers because it's not cheap. Like flowers are, for a nice flower arrangement, we'll call it, you're looking at $100 or so. On Valentine's Day, they do tend to jack up the prices. Like it's probably like $150 for a Valentine's Day delivery versus any other day of the week or year. But I have friends who fundamentally say, I won't give flowers because they die and it's not worth it to do it. But I disagree. I think flowers are nice.
On as the closing comment, so to speak, in a relationship, I'd hope that I'd be so aligned with a person that we both think, rather than spending $150 on dying flowers, as much as I like them on that particular day, we'd rather, I don't know, buy a good couple of steaks and a bottle of wine and devour that together at home.
Yes. And that I will say, that's how my wife and I we're on that same page together. She does like flowers, and I probably don't bring them into our home as much as she would probably like, and as much as I would be nicer for me if I did it. Because I don't want to say I should do it. I don't think should is the right word, but bringing flowers into the house, something I know she likes, and I could do it more.
Maybe you do it in 2 weeks from now.
I thought of one other thing, it made me think of Christmas gifts. We have what's called Boxing Day here, which is when things tend to go on sale. They'll have these Boxing Day sales. So I'm going to throw this one at you. You're in a long distance relationship and you're going to bring a Christmas gift to your partner, but you're not going to see them until after Christmas. If they buy the Christmas gift on sale the day after Christmas Day and they see you the next day, is there something diminished about that? Or is that just smart?
I see why that could come across as it's diminished, but no, I think that's the smart thing to do as grown-up people. And as you love your wife, you're in a stable, solid relationship. You don't need to prove shit to her anymore, other than that you're smart about things, and buy the gift at a reduced price. But plus, what is it going to be, right? Things that nowadays us grown-ups, like I love to get kitchen supplies, and my grandmother likes to give me the kitchen supplies that I want for Christmas. I much rather have her buy it on sale the next day, because I could not care less if I get it on Boxing Day or the day after. Yeah,
I agree. Well, Teresa, let's not make it so long before you come back on the show, okay?
Promise.
All right. Well, I'll say it however you celebrate it. Happy Valentine's Day to you. Happy Valentine's Day to the listeners. And until next time.
Thank you. Bye, Clark.